Doug Wiley with Police Magazine. I'm here with Captain Greg Meyer, a good friend of mine and of law enforcement in general. You speak on and teach police officer safety with regard to traffic stops. There are a host of dangers involved in traffic stops. What are some of the lessons that you teach officers to try and mitigate some of those risks and remain safer on the streets?
One of the best tactics that I think people have learned over the years is to do what we call a right side approach. Traditionally, we were taught approach on the driver's side of the vehicle and, be careful as you approach and all that. But too many officers have been hit and even killed on that side of the car. Mm-hmm. And so quite a few officers, quite a few agencies are teaching and requiring a right side approach to look inside the vehicle from the right side. It was actually proven some years ago that you can see more inside the vehicle if you approach from the right side than on the left side. If you picture walking up, you're focused on the driver, you have a very limited view. But if you're over on the right-hand side of the car and focused on the driver, you get to see a whole lot more of the back seat, the passenger seat,
the
that whole
foreground
area in there in case there's a threat. So it's safer for quite a number of reasons.
Mm-hmm. One of those reasons, of course, with some of the force science instruction, is that it's more difficult for an assailant armed with a pistol to do this. They're going to have to get through the passenger side seat. They're going to have to get through the B-pillar. It's much more. This is much easier.
Exactly right. And unfortunately, we've learned that with the deaths of however many officers over the decades that get killed in exactly that way. So that plus the problem with the passing motorists, the drunk drivers, the people that see the lights or see what's going on over here, there's a tendency for most people, if you're looking to your right while you're driving, you start to drift to your right. If you look into your left, you start to drift to your left. And unfortunately, a lot of officers have paid the price for that phenomenon.
Right. One of the tenets of Below 100 that I'm very fond of talking about is that there are two kinds of vests. There is your bullet-resistant vest, and then there's that, what I call the school crossing guard vest, bright green or neon.
Sure.
How do you express the importance of donning that vest at nighttime, even in daytime, in certain conditions, to ensure that motorists, in particular passing motorists, see you more clearly?
If you're directing traffic, if you're working a special event, if you're out in the street investigating a traffic collision, for example, absolutely wear that vest. I was at the Hollywood Bowl last night for an event there, and as I was walking down and passing all of the security personnel and the Los Angeles police officers in uniform that were working that event, every single one of them had on that highly reflective green, yellow vest. I go, yeah. And that's important when you're out there and need to be highly visible.
Yeah. What are some of the other key takeaways about traffic stops in general?
Some officers have paid with their life on this. Is don't sit in your car while you're writing that ticket.
Yeah.
Don't sit in the car while you're doing that warrant check. You say, oh, well, yeah, but my computer's in the car. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're by yourself, if you don't have a partner out there in a guarding position, don't be sitting in that car and checking that computer, okay? Because you can be surprise attacked really easy. Use your radio and let the operator check that. One important issue is whether to get someone out of the car, make them stay in the car, whether they're the driver or the passengers and all that. It's important to understand that legally that is completely the officer's discretion. For example, in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is kind of the Western United States, that's typically regarded as not overly friendly to law enforcement, they decided in 2005 in the United States versus Williams that it makes sense that the officers have full discretion. Their exact words were, giving officers the authority to control all movement in a traffic encounter is sensibly consistent with the public interest in protecting their safety. So if you're worried about, can I get this guy out of the car? Can I make him stay in the car? Up to you.
Yeah.
Whatever you think is best
Whatever
for the
situation
situation.
calls for.
And you're on solid legal grounds. At least in the Ninth Circuit, I would like to think that other circuits have similar laws. If they don't, they should. And you should check with your local agency's legal advisor on that point.
That would be a good piece of advice, right?
Sure. Another issue is pretext traffic stops. Any traffic violation justifies you pulling somebody over. For example, if you think there's some suspicious activity, but you can't really articulate it, and then you see that the person is speeding or not signaling when they make a turn, or doing any kind of a traffic violation, or you see an equipment violation, that gives you the right to pull them over again. This one's the United States Supreme Court in Wren, W-H-R-E-N, versus the United States, clear back in 1996. And this was a unanimous U.S. Supreme Court decision. We don't see too many of those these days.
Graham was the only one I could think of.
There you go. But unanimously, the U.S. Supreme Court said that any traffic offense committed by a driver is a legitimate legal basis for a stop. And experienced officers know, and rookie officers have probably heard the stories. I just pulled the guy over for speeding, and the car's full of guns and heroin. Or I just pulled the guy over for making an illegal turn, and it turned out to be a wanted robber, a wanted murder suspect.
Timothy McVeigh was arrested by a trooper.
Timothy McVeigh, later executed for the Oklahoma City bombing, was pulled over by a highway patrol officer for a traffic violation in the Ryder Rent-A-Truck that was his getaway truck from that bombing.
And odd coincidence of fate is that he wasn't released over the weekend because they couldn't get a judge.
Yeah,
So it was just
go.
a really well executed. He thought the guy was a little hinky. Brought him in.
Right.
And check on him. Guess what we found? A terrorist.
Right. And then I have to reflect on my 5 years of running the traffic division that covers half the city of Los Angeles. I think traffic stops are great. Get those traffic tickets, make the road a little safer, and you're gonna get lucky and get that gun, get that dope, get a wanted suspect sometime too, as a bonus.
It's the basics of proactive policing and the benefits of doing proactive policing. I hope we get right back to that. We've seen a little bit of a withdrawal in our current time with a lot of anti-police sentiment, but I think we can get back to it.
Yeah, if the public comes to trust the officers a little bit more than the media is letting them trust the officers these days, we should be able to get back to that. It's a little tough right now that you get to pick and choose what you're going to do out there, and your job is to protect the public and enhance public safety, and you need to do it in the safest way possible.
Greg, thank you for everything you do for law enforcement. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Doug Wiley with Police Magazine.